everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Joli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And in today's video, I'm going to be taking you through some of my favourite soil alternatives that you can use for your houseplants, either alone or mixed into your potting mixes, and walk you through the pros and cons of each of them. So let's get into it. So there's loads of different things that you can use nowadays instead of soil or regular potting mix for your houseplants, some of them offering up amazing benefits to help keep your plants happy and healthy. The first one I want to talk about is sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is a really great one to use if you know that you're slightly prone to overwatering, just because it holds moisture really well but still remains light and airy. It usually comes in a block like this, which you rehydrate using lukewarm water as and when you need it, meaning that unlike a big bag of soil, it's really easy to store. And the good thing with this as well is that a little bit of it goes such a long way. It's a perfect choice for aroids because in their natural habitat, they usually grow attached to trees or other shrubs instead of actually in the ground. And this stuff mimics exactly what they love. I also use it a lot for propagating. I started my Anthurium clarinervium seeds off in a little sphagnum moss propagation box recently, and the one that has sprouted, I've also just potted up in sphagnum moss too. It is so small and tiny, but I love it. Because it holds moisture so well without becoming too dense and compact, it's really easy to create a humid, stable environment for plant propagation. You can also just mix it in with your regular soil to help keep it light and airy and help with moisture retention. One of the things to be aware of with sphagnum moss is that although it's amazing at retaining moisture, it does tend to dry out fairly quickly, so that probably means you'll have to water much more frequently. Unlike regular potting mix that's more compressed and takes longer to dry out all the way through, this can lose pretty much all of its moisture fairly quickly if you don't keep an eye on it. It's also important to say that sphagnum moss alone won't be able to provide your plant with all of the nutrients it needs, so you'll have to increase how much you fertilise it as well. I'll usually just add a small amount of hydroponic fertiliser to my water and use this regularly to make sure my plants are kept happy and getting everything they need. A hydroponic fertiliser basically just contains more nutrients than normal plant fertiliser because it's specifically designed for plants that aren't receiving any additional nutrients from the soil. Lastly, the other really important thing to remember is that sphagnum moss will start to break down and degrade over time. As this happens, it can become quite acidic and much less airy, meaning that you'll probably have to repot your plants more often than normal to avoid issues. Next up is Lechuza Pon. Pon's one that isn't quite as well known as the others, but can provide absolutely incredible benefits for your plants. It's basically a mix of lava rock, pumice, zeolites, and slow release fertilizer. The lava rock and pumice help with aeration and drainage, as well as water retention. Zeolites are something commonly used in aquariums to help purify the water because they help to remove toxins such as ammonia, but they're also really high in nitrogen and micronutrients. The amazing thing about Pon is that it essentially holds onto and stores water and nutrients and then slowly releases them to the plants over time as and when they need it, meaning that overwatering and over-fertilizing are really hard to do. I first heard about it when I was going away on holiday for a couple of weeks and I was desperately searching for something that was going to keep my plants hydrated so I wouldn't have to worry while I was away. And I'd heard about Pon before, but I'd never actually used it. And honestly, it just topped my expectations and now I absolutely love it. When I got back from holiday, not only were all of my plants absolutely fine, happy, healthy, but quite a few of them that had almost been a little bit dormant before were suddenly popping out new growth. Pon keeps for such a long time, meaning that you can use it for years and years and years and it won't lose its structure. So if you don't want to be repotting all the time, then this one's definitely a good shout. I don't really have any cons with this one, to be honest. Because of its mineral base as well, it's really amazing at preventing pests, and also if you're dealing with fungus gnats, it's almost impossible for them to set up camp in there as well. So yeah, it's just all round great, really. I haven't tried propagating with it yet, but I've heard that it's also really amazing for that, so I will give that a go and keep you posted. The next great soil alternative is Coir. This is another one that you can just buy in a small block and rehydrate as and when you need it. If any of you watched my recent plant chores video, you will have seen just how much it expands when you add water.
Oh my God. Okay.
Coir's also a great, sustainable and more environmentally friendly alternative to a lot of other potting mediums, such as peat. I always opt for coconut coir, which is basically just the ground up husks of coconut. And similarly to the last one, it holds on to water really, really well while still remaining airy and light and not too dense. This means that if you're prone to overwatering, it can be a really great shout to help keep the roots of your plant happy and healthy. Although the light texture and water retaining properties of it are amazing, again, by itself, it doesn't actually hold that much nutritional value. So if you use it without mixing it in with anything else, just make sure you're using a decent high quality fertilizer. The other thing with Coir is that it holds a pretty much completely neutral pH balance, which is perfect for some plants, but others, for example, might enjoy a more acidic soil. So just make sure you do your research into what your specific plant likes before potting it in something it might not be happy in. A lot of the time as well, I'll add Coir mixed into my soil potting mixes just to help them stay nice and light and airy and not become too dense. Next on the list is LECA. LECA stands for Lightweight Expanded Clay Aggregate, and essentially is just little balls of baked clay that expand slightly when you soak them in water. This is another one that's a really great soil alternative to help regulate watering, because again, the water will be slowly released to your plants as and when they need it, so again, it's really hard to overwater. Root rot is one of the biggest killers in houseplants, but with this substrate, your plants can actually choose when to feed on the water from the LECA, meaning that their roots don't actually have to be sat in water at all. It's also great at allowing oxygen to reach the roots of your plant and is far less messy than conventional potting soil. LECA is another one, however, that doesn't actually provide any nutritional value by itself. So again, you'll need to invest in a hydroponic fertilizer, add this to your water, and then your plants can get all of the nutrients they need. Next up is perlite. Similarly to the lava rock, perlite's a porous substance that offers amazing drainage as well as water retention in plants. It's actually really similar to LECA in a lot of ways. Again, it's got a completely neutral pH balance, so you can control how acidic or alkaline you make it, depending on the plant. The great thing about perlite as well is that you can actually sterilize it after using it and return the pH balance to normal so that you can use it for all your other plants. It won't decompose, so you can use it time and time again. I've got quite a few perlite propagation boxes, and every time I'm done with one, I'll sterilize them using hydrogen peroxide and then use them again. So it's a really eco-friendly, sustainable way to not create more waste. Because of how great it is at retaining water, it really is amazing for propagating. This is one of my little Philodendron melanochrysum wet sticks that's been propagating in perlite, and as you can see, it's doing really, really well. It's another one that when used by itself won't actually provide any nutritional value for your plants. So again, just make sure you're using a good quality hydroponic fertilizer so that your plants don't become malnourished. Although I do use perlite by itself for propagating, what I tend to do most of the time is just mix some of it in with my normal soil mixes to keep the soil nice and aerated, well draining, all that good stuff, and keep the roots happy. The last one I'm going to talk about today is actually water itself. This is the perfect solution for anybody who might forget to water their plants from time to time and wants to keep things really low maintenance. Water is obviously used a lot for propagating plants, but so long as you do things right and make sure you're providing them with all the right nutrients, you don't actually have to move them to soil after they've developed a root system. If you've ever heard people refer to hydroponic growing, this is essentially what it means. You can find some really beautiful vases and just pop your plants in there and watch the roots develop. It goes without saying again that you'll need to add some hydroponic fertilizer into the equation here too, or else your plants are going to be seriously malnourished. As I said at the beginning, the difference between hydroponic fertilizer and regular plant fertilizer is just that it provides extra nutrients that your plants would usually be receiving from the soil. Also, really important, with propagations, don't start adding fertilizer to the water until it's had the chance to develop a healthy root system, or else this can cause issues. I personally tend to use distilled water for hydroponic plants just because it contains far less treatment chemicals to tap water, but if your type of plant isn't particularly sensitive to this, then tap water should be fine. When using water instead of soil, you just have to remember to change the water fairly regularly. Plants absorb the nutrients from fertilizer fairly quickly, and when the water starts to go off, it means that the roots can be in danger. It also goes without saying, but make sure you read the instructions of your chosen fertilizer to make sure that you're not overdoing it. The most common problem that occurs with hydroponic growth is green algae starting to form in the vase. Obviously, doing regular water changes is great, but if it's not going away, the best thing to do is actually cover the container completely, blocking off all lights for about a week or so, and that should cause the algae to die off. There's loads of other soil alternatives that you can use for your plants that I haven't spoken about in this video, but these are just some of my personal favourites. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to drop them down below and I'll do my best to help. I really hope this video was useful. If it was, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next video.